Hofbrau Maibock.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. I've got yet another Maibock from my good friend Norby, and this one is from the legendary Hofbrau Brewery. Now this brewery need no introduction. They are one of the big six from Munich, one of the oldest brewers in Munich, if not the oldest. Yes, I think they are. And they do some absolutely fantastic beers. And this is one that I haven't tried from theirs. I regularly drink their Helles. They do it in Morrison's for £2.50 a bottle. Fucking legendary bloke, whoever does the buy-in for Morrison's, because that is a fantastic beer. But I've got some of their Maibock beer, which is a seasonal beer, so I've caught it at the right time. My mate Norby has just come over from Germany and he's brought all these seasonal Maibocks over with him, so there are going to be quite a few of them here. I've just had some of the Einbeck Maibock, which in my opinion was one of the best I've tried so far. I'm wondering whether Hofbrau are going to equal that. Now Einbeck, in my opinion, are the oldest Maibock brewer, but Hofbrau also claim to be the oldest as well. I think I can see where they're coming from. Hofbrau, they had, in fact it was a master brewer from, or a brewer from Einbeck, who moved to Munich and started brewing this for the House of Wittelbach, and they were dissatisfied with the current beer that was available during the month of May, because beer was seasonal, of course. So they got him to brew a beer, and it was the stuff that was made in Einbeck. They called it Maibock, so you argue the semantics about that, but needless to say, it's a great style of beer. Now, it's very in keeping with the Bock style of beer. So if you've ever tried a Doppelbock, an Eisbock, a Maibock is in that style of strong beer, full-bodied, high ABV, very flavoursome, occasionally quite bitter. Certainly with the Einbeck, I did find that very big on the hops, on the German noble hops. And it does, how can I put this politely? Some people may not like it, because Maibock is an acquired taste. Some people don't like them high ABV beers, and it does have quite a lot of hop bitterness in there. If you're a fan of Czech Pilsners, then you're really going to like that. But it is one of them styles of beer that when you drink it, you are immediately taken back by the high bitterness that is in there. This one, for example, I should mention this in the next section, but this one is 31 IBUs, which for a bottom fermented, effectively what it is, it's a lager, that is very high. So you have to take into consideration that when you're drinking this style of beer. Now another unique, well I wouldn't say unique, but another characteristic of the Maibock style is they use the decoction mashing, and that is a brewing technique which is designed to, or formulated to try and get the most of the sugar out of the malt, to give you a very big malty flavour and a lot of flavour in the beer in general. And that was very evident in the Einbeck Maibock, and I'm assuming it's going to be like that with this lot. Now they are a fantastic brewer, I have to say. I don't think I've had a bad one from them. Their Dunkel is fantastic. As I say, the Helles is one of my regular fridge fillers. I think it's £2.50 or £2.60 a bottle from Morrison's, and you really can't go wrong with that. When I look at that on the shelf and I see the other shit that they're selling, the shelf opposite, they've got all the fucking macro brewed stuff like Heineken, Carlsberg and all that, and it just pains me that more people go and buy that stuff than they do this stuff. But their loss, in my opinion. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much about it because I've explained the history of Maibock and the style and why it was brewed in the Einbeck video. So if you want a little potted history or description of the style, then go to that video to get that. But needless to say, this is in the same style, usual characteristics, dark amber colour or an amber colour, bitterness, but with also some big malt character on there as well. So with that in mind, let's investigate the beer. Right, Hofbrau Maibock. I love the label. You see that? Let me get my fucking ugly boat race out of the way. See them all dancing around the maypole. That is a European thing. That is a fertility dance, and they do that during spring. Of course, you know, you look at the traditions of Northern and Western Europe in general. Spring is the time when all the lambs are born. It's the time of Easter, or as to give it its correct term, the spring equinox, when the days start getting longer, the lambing season starts, and it's the reason why Easter has rabbits with them. You know what rabbits do, we know what they're renowned for. It's basically the time for having kids and shagging and finding a girlfriend or a boyfriend, whatever floats your boat, if you know what I mean. But that dancing around the maypole, they do it in Germany, they do it here as well. Morris dancers, of course, everyone laughs at them, says, they're all fucking weirdos and all that, and they think, it's stupid. They respect other countries' tradition, but they look at England and they say, Morris dancers, what a bunch of fucking tossers. That tradition goes back centuries, and it is a fertility dance. Believe me, if it had religion attached to it, people wouldn't be so dismissive of it. I'll tell you a little story. Here's a little story. I'm going way off topic now, but on the subject of these fertility rites and the history of it and the whole thing about Easter. Easter's a complete fucking made up, stolen Christian festival. I'm not knocking you, whatever your religious persuasion is. You can believe in what you want. I have absolutely no dog in that race, whatever. You do what you want. But it annoys me that Easter has now become this holy religious festival. It was originally a pagan festival, a Germanic pagan festival, and even the name Ostra is taken from a Germanic god, or Germanic goddess, I should say, which was associated with these fertility festivals. But to get to the point, I've got a mate from Cornwall. He lives in a place called Boscastle, and they have a thing down there called the Hobbyhouse, or the Obios, as they call it. And it's basically some bloke dresses up as a horse, and he's got these big long arms with wooden beams all draped in black, and he does this dance around the town and all that. And the rumour is, if you touch the Obios, you'll be lucky in love. And one of his mates, he'd been single for a long time, and he was hoping to be lucky in love, and he tried to get near the Hobbyhouse, and where these big wooden beams on this bloke's arms where he's dancing around, he got whacked straight in the head and ended up in A&E, and he wasn't too well after that. And I did read this year, I mean, that's quite a funny story, but I did read this year a woman was killed by one of them. Was it this year or was it last year? I can't remember, but she was actually killed by it. We got hit in the head with the thing. I mean, it's pretty dangerous stuff, but I mean, that's a tradition. That's a West Country tradition, which I think and I think they do it up in Norfolk as well, and maybe Suffolk. So you never see that in London. You just see some cunt fucking mugging people down there, or smashing shop windows or whatever. That's the looting season, I think they call it. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get on to the beer. Right, this is a 500ml bottle. It is 7.5%. Jesus Christ. Have I got work in the morning? I have, haven't I? Oh dear, how sad. Never mind. 7.2, I'm lying. Everything's in German, but naturally this conforms to the Reinheitsgebot, which means absolutely nothing. I keep saying it. Don't believe the hype. There's probably other stuff in here as well. Nobody cares. I was just looking at the sell-by date. It's the 3rd of the 11th, 2022. So I think this may have come from last year, but it's still good. And you know my views on sell-by dates with beer most of the time, and if, especially high alcohol stuff like this, it's not going to go off for a while. You could probably drink this 2 years, 3 years maybe, and it'd be fine. There's the label. I'll just give you another look at that. Of course, the usual Hofbrau crest that's on there, or trademark, whatever you want to call it, and there's the geographical protected status of that. Why they've put that on there, I don't know. Genuine, oh yeah, Bayerisch beer or Bavarian beer. Yeah, good stuff. Let's get it open and see what's going on. Right, I'm looking forward to this because I do like what Hofbrau do. I don't think I've had a bad one from them, and I would be very surprised if this was the exception to the rule. There's the fucking camera, you little bastard. In fact, do you know what I'm going to do? While you're there, I should have done this before, but do you know what? I'm going to do it now. I'm going to clean the bloody lens because, sorry about this, because there's bad. I think there might be a little bit of dust on it. Has it made a bit of difference? Probably not. Am I better looking? No. I've got a face that could turn milk sour at 20 paces. Do you know what? I'm so proud of that. Hofbrau glass. Get me. Let's get it in there. And again, look at that colour. Lovely amber. Copper coloured. Deep amber. Now the Iron... Oh, blimey, that head's a bit lively, isn't it? Now the Einbecker had... it came in a green bottle, and it was slightly skunked. Not too much, didn't really affect the flavour. That did taste really good, but there was a hint of that skunkiness on there. I have fucked that off massively, haven't I? Look at I. Look at I. Look at I. Look at that. It's a very lively beer, as you can see. There's a lot of carbonation in that. Very clear though. Decoction mashing will do that. Oh, it smells lovely. It smells really good, and again very similar to what was in the Einbeck stuff. Now I should have done this in the last section, but there are certain hops in here, and they've got Magnum hops in here, and I don't know why I did think this, but I thought Magnum hop was. Magnum is a bitter in hop, but I found out today. I always assumed it was an American hop with a name like Magnum. It was first grown in a German university, hop university, in a place called Hull, spelled Hull. And it did make me laugh because obviously, as you know, there's a place called Hull in the People's Republic of Yorkshire. It's North Yorkshire. It's got a really bad reputation. But there's a place in Germany called Hull, and it's got two umlauts on the U, so I'm assuming it's pronounced Hull. And that's where it first was made, or first grown in 1980, and it's become the de facto bittering hop for pale ales and lagers, and it's got it in here as well, so that's quite interesting. It's also got Perla hops in here, it's also got Hercules hops, and it's got Select, so that could be Tettnanger Select, but it's one of the noble hops, or derivative of the noble hops. And the two malts that they've got in here, they've got a base, a pale malt, or a barley malt, which I imagine is the base malt, and of course, coming from Bavaria, coming from Munich, it's going to have Munich malt in it. So there's your ingredients. I've got this all arse about face because I should have done this in sections, but I'm just too eager to get this down my fat Gregory Peck. It smells absolutely gorgeous, very similar to the Einbeck stuff as well. And as you know, if you watch the Einbeck, the Hofbrau claim to brewing the first Maibock was actually brewed by a native from Einbeck who moved to Munich and brewed that beer in the style that he was brewing in Einbeck. So you could argue that, in my opinion, that makes Einbeck the first brewers, and they say that as well, that they're the first brewers of Maibock. But I think Hofbrau were the first ones to actually call it Maibock. I don't know, but there's two claims. I'm going with Einbeck. So there you go. But if this is good, then it doesn't change anything. it's just going to be a good beer. But I'm using that Einbeck now as the standard because that was an absolutely amazing Maibock. But this has all the characteristics. It's very dark. In fact, I think that's darker than the Einbeck stuff. But let's stop gassing and let's get this down my Fat Gregory pack. Post. Oh, that's lovely. That's really good. But it is different to the Einbeck stuff. The Einbeck stuff had a lot of bitterness on it, and I thought I was going to get that in here with the Magnum hops that are in here, but it's not as bitter on the palate. Now the finish on it isn't as big, in my opinion. I'm going to try it again, and I'll let you know. But I don't think it's as big as the Einbeck. The Einbeck was perfect on the palate. It was very bitter, to the point where you're thinking this is more like a Pilsner, but then or a good Czech Pilsner, you know, that bitterness that you get on Czech Pilsners, it was like that. But then you had the finish on it, which was that liquid bread stuff. This is more rounded. You don't get the spiky bitterness that you get on the Einbeck, and you get the liquid bread finish, but it's not as pronounced. The Einbeck is much more in your face with the flavours. I wouldn't say extreme bitterness, but big bitterness and big malty finish. This is more rounded all the way through. Not so much bitterness on the palate, and the malty finish isn't as big. But that could change. Let me try again. Yeah, much more rounded. Now, I've always said this as well, and I did make mention of this on a couple of other videos, and it was about about craft brewers putting American hops into lagers, which in my opinion is a fucking idiotic move. But the whole point of a lager is the ultimate session beer, and the reason it's a good session beer is it doesn't have massive flavours. The Einbeck came in 330ml bottle. It's, yes, flavour. It's got flavour all day long. If flavour's your thing, then that's the one. And that'll be Percy. He smelt the beer. I told him to get out before because he was farting, and it was absolutely disgusting. So he's waiting there. Come on, Percy. Percy, come on. Percy. Percy. Here he is, the main man. Come on. Yeah, I know you can smell the beer. Oh, you're getting bloody heavier, mate, I tell you. Get out of it. What do you think of that, mate? Yeah, you would know, wouldn't you? I don't feed him beer. Don't feed dogs beer. I always say this. Don't give dogs beer. It's not good for them. It goes straight through them. Don't it, Purse? You don't. That doesn't bother you though, does it? This is much more of a drinkable Maibock, in my opinion. If you want flavour, go for the Einbeck. If you want sheer drinkability, then this stuff. And it does show as well in the 330ml bottle that the Einbeck have done theirs in, and the 500ml that they've done in the Hofbräu have done in their Maibock. But it's really good, and it's slightly sweeter as well. I've had to put him down. I don't know what he's doing at the moment. Oh, you just want to sit down? Oh, what's the matter with you? Looking at me like you got the ump. He's just had his dinner. I think he doesn't need me now. I'm sure he just wants me for walks and feeding. A bit like my missus. There you go. Don't tell her I said that. The Hofbräu stuff, as I say, this is very similar in the finish to a lot of their beers, where they've got that liquid bread type thing, and it's lovely. I have to say, it is really nice. I'm going to compare it to the Einbeck because these two are the ones that are claiming they were the originators. So I think it's a good comparison to set the two off against each other. I think both have their upsides. The Hofbrau, it's lovely. I mean, I could drink this all day, to be honest, but at 7.2, it wouldn't be all day. It'd be a few hours and then I'd be out for the count and do something stupid. But the Maibock is, I think that's 6.5 or something like that. So it's still a bit hefty, which you would expect with a Maibock. But I think this is the more sessionable one, if that's possible, with a 7.2 beer. In fact, it could be a little bit dangerous at 7.2. I mean, that is hefty. There's no trace of ethanol on there. It was a slight trace of ethanol on the Maibock, which was 6.5. It wasn't big, but it was there. This is a higher ABV, and generally, it's a sweeter beer, in my opinion. Why are you looking at me like that for? If you could see his face. Yeah, I'm trying to say. To be honest, I can't really say which one's better, because the Maibock had more flavour. This one is it's more rounded and it's more drinkable, and it reminds me of the Inga. So maybe there's a difference. The Maibock come from Lower Saxony. This is from Bavaria. Maybe it's just a characteristic of Bavarian beer that you have sweeter styles. Well, it probably is actually. I mean, you rarely get very bitter. Even the Pilsners, there are a couple of exceptions, Franconian Pilsners, but generally I find that southern Germany, certainly Bavarian Pilsners, aren't as extreme or as harsh as the, I wouldn't say harsh, that's making it sound that it's not nice. And I do like North German Pilsners. They're not as bitter. They haven't got that hot bitterness that the North German Pilsners has. Or they have got it, but not in as much abundance. In fact, it's quite symbolic of this as well, in that the flavours are more rounded, which is good. I mean, Bavarian beer is designed to be drunk. Now, I know that's a stupid sounding statement, but it just is. You know, that's the whole thing the whole thing about the Steins and all that, and drinking litres of beer at a time. Oh, fucking hell, I couldn't do that now. I mean, I've only got a little belly now. I'm a fat bastard, but for some reason I can't drink that much, to be honest. I think it must be an age thing. I certainly can't drink as much as I used to. And I'm, 50 now. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to have one more mouthful of this and give it a verdict. Lovely. Certainly wouldn't know that that's a 7.2 beer. Quite sweet. Very characteristic of a Bavarian beer. You've got that liquid bread, slight honey to it as well. The hop character is there, not as stark as it was in the Maibock, but supremely drinkable. For a 7.2 beer, that is fucking dangerous. So what's the verdict on Hofbrau Maibock? It's lovely. I mean, there is nothing wrong with this at all. I can't find fault with it. I'm still going to go with Maibock as being the archetypal or the de facto Maibock. It's got all the characteristics of it. Big hops in there, nice malty finish, strong ABV, and a little bit bigger in the flavour. But this, it's got a little bit of sweetness to it, but it is so good. Certainly you would not know that that's 7.2, and that could be very dangerous indeed. It's lovely, and to be honest, I have to give it a 10 out of 10. And I know you're probably saying, oh fucking hell, surprise surprise, another Bavarian beer that's 10 out of 10. But this is as good as it gets when it comes to beer. Now, if you can imagine beer of that strength over here, you really would get the ethanol on that. You certainly don't get that on that at all. That is just very, very drinkable. Doesn't taste like a 7.2% beer. You could quite easily say this was what, maybe even a 5% beer. There's no trace of ethanol in that at all, and nothing on the aroma either. In fact, that's a really nice aroma. It's like honey. Some of the hop characters coming through on there as well, but the overall thing is it's quite sweet, but it just smells so good, and it tastes even better. And that is, I would say that you shouldn't really be sessioning this, because this is pretty serious stuff. I know I joke about getting drunk and all that, blah, blah, blah. But if you're going to try and session 7.2% beer, it's going to do bad things to you. And when I say that, I mean, if you make a habit of it, you know, you could end up with health problems and all that. If you're like me, it could get you in some very stupid or some very dangerous situations. I've been in both in my time. I'm not going to go into them, but yeah, alcohol has got me into a lot of trouble in the past. And yeah, I think at 50 years old, I'm gonna say, I'm not gonna say drink responsibly. I'm just gonna say, just fucking take it easy if you're drinking a 7.2% beer. But for me, all day long, this is 10 out of 10. I love it. I think it's brilliant. Typical Hofbrau. Some people, I mean, I talked to my German mate, and he was saying that he classes it as a tourist type beer, and he'd rather go for the obscure stuff. The Germans have a very, how can I put this, and I've seen this in Yorkshire as well, they have a loyalty to their regional brewers, and you don't get that in London at all. I mean people like London pride, but I have got that a little bit, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I mean, if it's good beer, then fucking drink your local beer, because it's the best it's going to be. If it's local to you, it's going to be fresh, and it doesn't have to travel too far. But the Germans do have that, and they take that to quite an, I wouldn't say an extreme, but my friend, certainly my mate Norby, he drinks mainly sort of West German beer, even though he's from the East. He drinks the West German stuff, but he has got quite a good grasp on what to get. And as I say, there's some, you're just going to be seeing German beer reviews for the next month or so. So if you're not a fan of German beer, you might as well switch off now. And you notice I don't say, I mean, you watch a lot of YouTube videos and people say, oh, like and subscribe and all that. I don't give a fuck, but if you like, you subscribe and all that, doesn't bother me. I'm not here to make money. I'm not here to gain fans and all that. I mean, some people just fucking sell their souls just to get fucking subscribers on YouTube. I don't give a fuck. I really do appreciate you if you do, but I'm not here to say, oh, please like and subscribe, please, you know, love me and all that. Fuck off. Get to fuck. I really don't understand all that cult of personality that you've got on YouTube and all that. But there you go. That's just me. Anyway, that's not a bad Maibock. How can I put this? If you want flavour, go for Einbeck. If you want drinkability, go for this. But as I said, 7.2%. Be very fucking careful. You could end up in a prison cell. You could end up in hospital. Or you could end up worse. Is there worse than that? Probably. You could end up at the Arsenal ground. But there you go. And remember, beer is working class champagne.